Hi everyone, this is Primetime Combat, and I'm joined today by one of the biggest prospects from UK MMA, 6-1 as a professional with all 6 wins coming via finish, fighting for Cage Warriors, Nathan Fletcher. Nathan, thank you for joining me today.
No worries at all, mate. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So Nathan, before we talk about your highly anticipated next fight, let's recap your career a little bit first. I believe before you started competing
Go
MMA,
on,
you
no worries,
were a
mate.
very notable junior wrestler in the UK and even won the British Junior Championships in 2015. What got you into competitive wrestling from a young age?
So essentially, I started out wanting to do MMA, but I was going to a small club where I live in Southport, and basically it was me and Adam Cullen, who also fights on Cage Warriors now, and a few other lads that were turning up every day to this gym. But there wasn't, like I said, there wasn't a lot of bodies, and it was quite a small club. So one of the coaches there was called Carl McGrath, and he was a former like British wrestler. He competed at a pretty decent level. Um, so most nights we'd go in this MMA gym and we'd just be doing freestyle wrestling with Carl. So he said, we'd be better off, and he offered to take us down to like Wigan, Bolton, Manchester, all these other like Olympic wrestling clubs where we met Charlie Bolin and the likes of him and all the British wrestling team. So we just kind of like it kind of happened by coincidence because me and Adam were wanting to do MMA, but like I said, there wasn't really the numbers, there wasn't really the bodies in our small club that we trained at. So by chance, we met Carl and he took us down to the wrestling clubs, and then we just kind of fell into that there, started enjoying the wrestling training, started competing in that because there wasn't many avenues for competition for us at MMA at that stage. We were only young, we were only about 15 years old. So at the time, we couldn't even really fight amateur MMA. So we decided to compete in wrestling, and then fell in love with that, and it went from there, really.
So moving on, you were 5-1 as an amateur before turning professional, and since then all your fights have been under the Cage Warriors banner. Your professional debut was against Rico Briggs, where you defeated him via first round submission. What was your feeling like heading into your first professional fight?
To be honest, going into my first professional fight, I was very confident. I think based off the fact that I'd fought a lot of good guys at amateur, I had a really good amateur run, fought against a lot of guys who are now doing big things on the pro scene. So I felt very well prepared going into my first pro fight. Obviously, I took the fight against Rico, who was 4-0 at the time, and like not a lot of pros would turn over pro as a debut against someone who had 4 fights, you know what I mean, and 4 wins especially. Um, but yeah, like I said, I was very confident in my abilities. I train with, some of the top pros in the country now, UFC fighters. You know what I mean? So, I knew where my level was at, and like I said, I was very confident going into my pro debut.
And if we talk about your next 5 fights before your title shot, they were all very decisive finish victories for you. But one thing I did notice is that your opponents had a combined record of 27 wins and 4 losses. So you were consistently fighting top tier opponents. Is there a win that stands out to you?
Um, I mean, my last couple have all been against. Well, pretty much all my fights have been against, like you say, top tier opponents. Beating Brian Boolan was big for me because I was watching him in the Echo Arena fight pro. When I was still amateur, do you know what I mean? I was watching him on Cage Warriors for a long time, so that was someone I kind of not necessarily looked up to, but someone who I saw at the top level of European MMA whilst I was still competing amateur, and then to go in there and beat him in the first round, that was massive for my career. I beat an Italian guy called Michele Martignoni, and he was highly touted at the time. I think he was 6-0 when I fought him. He was coming off a win against Wesley Meyer on Cage Warriors. So again, he was pretty up there in terms of European MMA. And I went in and had a tough 3-round fight against him. Managed to get the win in the third round by submission. So those two are sort of big notable names on my record. But like I say, everyone I've fought has been pretty high level, and that's because all my fights have been on Cage Warriors. You know what I mean? So I haven't had any journeyman or any bum fights early on in my career. It's all been legit competition.
So these very impressive wins got you a well-deserved title shot where you fought Dominic Wooding for the vacant lightweight belt. In a fight where you were clearly dominating, unfortunately you got caught and the result was not what you were looking for. How have you reflected back on that fight?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, they're clearly dominating. I like that you picked up on that. I think level wise, I could beat Dominic. Do you know what I mean? I think that was evident in the first couple of rounds of the fight. I think the occasion maybe got the better of me a little bit, being for the Cage Warriors title. Now, like obviously, when I got into the sport, that was my first major goal that I set myself to achieve, and was winning the Cage Warriors title. And at 23 years old. I'd been a pro for not even 2 years, I think, at the time, or just over 2 years. I've been fighting from only my amateur debut 5 years before that. So in such a short space of time to get up to the pinnacle of European MMA right before, the UFC, that really. And I think maybe the moment got to me a little bit. I lacked a little bit of composure, whereas Dominic, my opponent, he's been in, big spots before. He's fought on the title fights on Bama and stuff like that. So I think he was just a little bit more calm and collected than I was. And that's what caused me to pick up my first professional loss. But like they say, I know it's cliche, but you learn a lot more from a loss than you do from any win. And I've taken that on board for my last fight, and I'm just ready to get back in there now. It's been a long 10 months since that. I've done a lot of growing, and I'm going to come back and just steamroll through everyone. And, ideally, I'd like to get that rematch with Dom, but I don't see him sticking around on Cage Warriors much longer. So whoever I need to get through to get another shot at the title, that's what I'm focused on now.
And that's fantastic to hear. So now looking forward to your next fight, you'll face Frenchman Araik Margarian at Cage Warriors 141 in London on July 22nd. How has preparation been so far, and how long ago did you know of this fight?
Yeah, preparation's been perfect. I've had 10 months since my last fight to sort of mentally get myself, where I need to be. Physically, I'm always in great shape. I think skill-wise, I've improved massively since my last outing. So you're going to see a lot of new skills in there in the cage this time. I've known I was fighting on this date for about 10 weeks, 12 weeks, maybe even. But I only found out about the opponent maybe 2 weeks ago. But to be quite honest, the style of opponent, what I've got in Araik, is someone that I've been visualizing for the last 10 weeks anyway. I kind of assumed that I'd be getting someone with this style, a game experienced opponent. But skill-wise, he's nowhere near on my level. And I think that's going to show in the cage on the 22nd.
So yeah, talking about your opponent, he's got a record of 25 wins and 11 losses, with several wins by submission. How much have you been able to watch of him?
I've seen a couple of his fights. Yeah, there's not a great deal on YouTube compared to how many fights he's actually had. But I've seen his most recent few, and that's the best to go off. Do you know what I mean? Because this guy's been fighting since 2009. So in 2009, I was in year 7 at school. Do you know what I mean? So just starting secondary school. But I've seen his last couple, which, more recently, the last year or so, and I'm going off that. But I never look too much into my opponents, to be honest. I've watched him. I understand, certain tendencies that he has and what style of opponent he is. But then I'm just focused on myself and what I'm going to do in there.
And your opponent, I believe, based on my research, this will be his first time fighting away from his native France. I know you fought once in Ireland, but how much of a difference do you think this could make?
I don't think it'll affect him too. I mean, none of that really matters. That I'm going to go in and smash him anyway in the first round, so that won't come into it. But I think he's an experienced guy. He's had 36 MMA fights, you know what I mean, and he's had countless kickboxing fights, K1. So I don't think traveling to a fight could affect him. But again, I'm not him, am I? So I can't really speak for him. I don't know what his mindset's going to be like coming into it. I just know what my mindset is, and I'm ready to get in there and get back on track now.
And talking about the arena, all your fights in London have been at the quite compact York Hall. This fight now will be at the Indigo at the O2, where it will be bigger and hold more spectators. Does this give you more of a buzz?
The Indigo is a good venue. I've always wanted to fight there. I don't necessarily think it'll give me more buzz. I've fought in the Echo Arena as an amateur. I've fought in, bigger venues before, and I'd had a lot of people there for me. This one, I'll actually probably have the least support that I've had in a while, just because it was fairly short notice and finding out about the opponent last minute and stuff like that, and people can't commit to coming down to London. But last time out in the York Hall, that was probably 5 minutes from Dominic's house, and I had the whole York Hall there screaming for me, about 100 man deep from the northwest of England. You know what I mean? So I don't really take too much from the crowd or the arena or anything like that.
Talking in terms of gyms, you currently train at one of the best MMA gyms in the UK, Next Generation MMA. I believe you trained a little bit at American Top Team and Team Alpha Male in the USA. What was that experience like, and would you encourage other fighters to go overseas to train?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great experience, to be honest. At the time, I was really young. When I went to Alpha Male, I think I was 20 and I was still an amateur. The main thing I took away from those trips is that you don't really need to go abroad to get that high level of training. Like they're not doing anything different from what we're doing. You know what I mean? That was a big spooks room full of UFC fighters and people that I'd looked up to since getting into the sport, and going with them and rolling with them, sparring with them, doing all the drills they do. It's the exact same as what we do back home. Do you know what I mean? We're all the same. We're all human beings. Sometimes you can get in your head a little bit about the Americans. Sorry, my camera went off there. The Americans or the Russians are doing like a certain style of training that's more effective or whatever, but it's not. At the end of the day, we're all doing the same thing. And if anything, it showed me the level that my gym's at back home, because it's like the exact same training as what they're doing out there. But yeah, I would encourage it. It's always good to mix up your training. You know what I mean? Go and spar with different body types and different style of fighters. It's always good experience to go and do that. I would recommend it.
And I had Adam Cullen on, obviously your best mate Adam Cullen, on recently, and he mentioned that you guys were planning potentially a trip to Thailand maybe in the next couple of years. What would you think of that experience?
Yeah, I've always wanted to go there, to be honest. Tiger Muay Thai is like the place to be in it. It seems like a lot of good fighters are going out there and doing the camps and stuff out there. So we've always spoke about that. So hopefully, maybe even towards the back end of this year or early next year, we're going to try and get out there. I've never actually done a training holiday with Dad, and we've been best mates for like 10 years now. So it's about time we went and done something like that. So hopefully we'll get one sorted soon. It's just whenever we've both not got fights lined up. You know what I mean? Because it's tough to work around that, but we'll definitely get out there. Yeah.
That sounds great. So now we'll move on to some quick fire questions. So this is just for fans to hear, you as a fan of MMA and then what your thoughts are on certain aspects. So we'll start off with, what's your favorite fight of all time?
Favorite fight of all time? So hard to pick one. Let's go off recent fights. Ooh, I'll go. Okay, random recent one. Brian Ortega and Volkanovski. That was a cracking fight. Maybe not of all time, but in recent memory, that was one of the best fights I've seen.
And your favorite finish from one of your fights?
My favorite finish is probably, I would say, the Brian Boolen finish, because it was very clean and I didn't take any damage in that fight. I went in and done exactly what I do and come out completely unscathed with that amount. I'd say that was my favorite finish.
And your favorite knockout ever in MMA?
Favorite knockout ever in MMA? Was it Joaquin Buckley when he caught the kick and he spun and spinning back kick the kid in the face? That was heavy. I'll probably say that. Or actually saying that, Meatball Molly spinning elbow at UFC London in March. That was also very heavy. So it's between them two. I'm going to lean towards Meatball because she's my training partner.
And I know you have a few submissions on your resume, but what is your favorite submission to practice?
Rear naked choke all day. You should know that. Come on. That's the main one. That's the one I get every time. So take the back on the back pack. That's what they call me.
And in your opinion, who is the MMA GOAT?
I don't know. There's too many to choose from. Right now, I think it's between Usman and Volkanovski. I mean, they're the two sort of pound for pound best at the minute. Obviously, you can never count out John Jones from that list, but he's not been active lately. So, and the way I see it is the sport's constantly evolving and growing. So anybody who's staying dominant in this day and age, that's really hard to do right now with the amount of talent in the sport at the moment in time. So between those three that I just said there, Jones, Usman, or Volkanovski.
And have you got a favorite fighter you like to watch?
Alexander Volkanovski. I'm probably going to sound like I'm up his arse a bit here, but yeah, at the minute, I think he's phenomenal. I think what he done to Max the other weekend was unbelievable, considering the level that Max is at. I think what he's done to the rest of his division, he seems to continually be getting better as well, which at the top of the sport you don't necessarily see. A lot of champions like Adesanya maybe seems to be, going a little bit more defensive and trying to not lose fights as opposed to going out and winning them, whereas Volk seems to be improving every time out there. So right now he's one of my favorite fighters to watch.
And do you have any routines or superstitions before a fight?
No, I don't believe in any of that. I think if you've got any routines or superstitions, that's just fear manifesting itself in in a specific way. I think it doesn't matter what happens. You know what I mean? I could have the worst day ever going into a fight, but once I get in that cage and the door shuts, whatever's happened before that doesn't matter. It's those 15 minutes that matter. So I don't have any rituals or anything like that I do before a fight.
And what is your go-to food after a fight?
Anything and everything, to be honest. No, I like desserts, me. So I've got a bit of a sweet tooth. So after a fight, I'll get like a cookie pie or a brownie melted with some ice cream, something like that. I like Whisper Golds as well. Chocolate, some form of dessert and sweet treat. That's what I like.
And the final question from the quickfire questions is something your fans don't know about you.
Something my fans don't know about me. That is a tough one. Let me think. Something the fans don't know about me. To be honest with you, lad, I can't even think. But I'm quite an open person. You know what I mean? I feel like I put quite a lot on it. So I like to go and watch the sunset. That's, you know what I mean. That's my nice little evening hobby. I like going and watch the sunset with my girlfriend. But they probably know that because I put it on my Insta story every other week as well when I'm there. But I've got a nice little spot that I go to by her house. It's round hill, and we go and watch the sunset there. So that's me. That's my guilty pleasure.
And we'll just move on to some fan Q&As. I just got a few questions here. So first one from Dan is, what was the experience like on Fight Island?
Yeah, that was sick. That was a really good opportunity, obviously, to go out there and be around all the UFC and see how things get run there. Yeah, that was a really cool experience. It was good as well to size up all the other fighters. I was walking around and clocking all the bantamweights and being like, oh, I'm bigger than him. And he looks massive on the telly. So that was a cool experience. Yeah, definitely.
And Michael asks, how does it feel to be on the main card for the historic 20th anniversary Cage Warriors event?
Well, I wouldn't know because I don't think I am on the main card, to be honest. I don't imagine I will be. The amount of fights that are on this card, I imagine I'm going to go on the prelims. But I don't care, to be honest. I'd rather fight earlier on this one. Do you know what I mean? I just want to get in. Last time out, I was main event. So I got the venue at like 5 p.m. and I was sat in the back till like 11 o'clock before my fight. So it was just hours and hours of waiting. Whereas this time I get to go, get warm and get out there relatively fast. So I don't think I'm on the main card for this one.
And Ethan asks, we don't often hear about wrestling backgrounds in the UK as opposed to the US where it is massive. How big is the wrestling scene in the UK?
To be honest with you, it's not big enough. It needs more bodies, more people, more involvement. The level of wrestlers that we've got are good. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, the likes of Charlie Boland, people like him, Ross Connolly, I think his name is, a Scottish lad. These type of guys are really high level, but they don't have a lot of training partners. So I would wish that and I think the scene will grow more with MMA. I think MMA is encouraging more kids of a younger age to get into wrestling because they're seeing how important it is, to be successful in MMA. But yeah, hopefully it keeps growing and getting bigger.
And final question from Jeremy, when will we see you in the UFC?
You see me in the UFC in less than 18 months, 1,000,000%. It's going to be in the next 12 to 18 months. I had a minor setback at the end of last year, and I had a couple of injuries to deal with. So that's why the return has been delayed slightly. But once I get back in that cage on the 22nd of July, absolutely smash Araik first round, then take on whoever else they want to give me, 2 or 3 more fights, and I'm in the UFC, 1,000,000%.
And I think we'll wrap it up there. I'd just like to say a big thank you to you, Nathan, for taking the time out of your day to speak to me, especially when we are getting closer to fight week. I'm very excited to watch you fight again, and everyone at Primetime Combat wishes you the very best for the remainder of your hopefully long and successful career. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you very much, mate. I really appreciate that. Very kind words. Thank you for having me on as well and showing some interest in me fighting. It means a lot to me. So thank you very much.